it's not an intermission when it's before, when they do when you go to a play or the opera and they play the overture.
Yeah.
You should do an overture for my lecture. Okay.
Oh, we'd be happy to see that.
Well, just so you know, I kind of prepared a more formal lecture about the museum, its collection, and also particularly a bit about our jewelry collection and about a collection of polymer jewelry that's recently come to the museum that we'll be featuring in the fall. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, but also since it's kind of just, I was told, family, and we have board members, staff members, and volunteers here, I told Kate, if you want, and Janet, if you want to ask questions, you know, professional questions, institutional questions, I'm happy to, you know, well, maybe a little bit, yes.
First professional questions. Who are you?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, yeah. Well, are we on? We're on. All right, so I have to clean up my act. Okay. I mean, I came with a suit and a necktie, but we just went to the mattress factory and I saw it was 120 degrees there. And I'm not doing anything up here. I'm Bruce Pepich. I'm Executive Director and Curator of Collections at the Racine Art Museum. And I was here on the jury this morning. I really enjoyed being part of that. And of course, we're jurying jewelry and small metals for your next show in the Raphael series. And so I thought, even though we deal with all craft at our museum, I thought I would talk specifically about jewelry. In my role at the museum, I'm the executive director, but I'm also the person who is in charge of the collection. I've been on staff. I'm in my 38th year, so Kate's chasing me, you know, on this a bit. So feel free to ask questions as you have just done, and you know, let me know if I'm not giving you enough of an answer. Okay, but does that cover that one? Good. Okay. Yes.
Let me know when you want the lights down.
Oh, we can. When they, yeah, let's see how we do. You know, usually when the lights go down, then I can't read my notes in this. No, I'm good. I'm good to go here. Okay.
It's really subtle, so maybe that'll help. I don't know if that gives you.
Oh, that's good. Is that okay? All right, good. That's perfect. Okay. So, RAM, which is on the right in this photograph, we began our life as the Charles A. Worcester Museum of Fine Arts, which is on the left. It was an Italianate farmhouse dating from the 1840s that was a dairy farm, and when Mrs. Wisdom died, she left the house, a small trust fund, and the remaining 13 acres of property to the city for it to be turned into an art museum in memory of her husband. And she died in '38, and the museum opened up in November of 1941. So we've been in business for quite some time. In 1943, we established our first bit of collecting. They were not collectors. This was not a collector's home museum. We ran it as an arts center with no collection. And then in 1943, a substantial group of works on paper from the WPA program came to the museum, and the prominent portion of that work was works on paper, so we started a works on paper collection there in the 40s that we continue to do today. And in '89, we created a second focus in contemporary craft to run alongside the works on paper focus. And what happened is during the 90s, we created the third most significant contemporary craft collection of any museum in the country, possibly today in North America, and we had nowhere to show it. So the opportunity to take on a building 2 miles away in the heart of the downtown redevelopment district came up. We actually renovated what was once 2 buildings, a dry goods store and a bank that was robbed by John Dillinger in the 1930s. The buildings actually date back to the 1870s and have been remodeled 7 different times. Let's do a next, please. And you'll see what this thing looked like in the 60s. A bank in Milwaukee bought the 2 buildings. One was Federal style, one was Art Deco, and ripped off all the ornamentation and filled in all the windows with a brutalist limestone facade. This was like reflective, kind of mirrored reflecting bronze glass. There were no views to the outside of the building from the inside. And so we basically renovated it to turn it into a box that we used the limestone cladding as a background, wrapped the building in plastic, which we light from above with high-intensity lamps, It glows like a Japanese lantern. It's really quite ethereal. And we did this for $125 a square foot. You can't even build a suburban house for that kind of money in our neighborhood, because it had to be financially sustainable, because we're a very heavily manufacturing community, or shall I say until recently. And in the 1990s, we lost 10,000 jobs in a community of 80,000. So we had the highest unemployment in our state for 11 years in a row. And that community raised $10 million to build this building that included $3 million for its endowment. And then 2 years after that, raised another $5 million to add to the endowment. So that to me is a very big commitment on the part of a predominantly blue-collar community, and a statement about their belief in what we would do with the community, for the community. Next.
Who's the major manufacturer in this?
Well, now it's SC Johnson Wax, and we're the home to the Johnson Wax building designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And we're sort of like a retail anchor in a shopping mall. We anchor 3 blocks of retail and a couple of blocks of like storefront art galleries and coffee shops and things that have come in. And of course, a lot of them have gone out during the recession. It's been kind of tough recently, but again, we're there 6 days a week, 12 months out of the year, anchoring that. And we bring about 50,000 visitors a year to this location. We take zip codes from everybody. 74% come from outside our county. 44% come from out of state. So we made it really clear to the community that we were going to be a cultural facility, but also an economic generator at the same time, and we are delivering on what we told them we were going to do. Okay, Racine is 70 miles north of Chicago and 25 miles south of Milwaukee. There are 11 million people living within 100 miles of our front door. What we do and how it's different. Let's look at the next slide, please. These are interiors. We've got the 2 collecting foci that I mentioned, and two of the things that we do, we collect crafts artists in depth with multiple examples of their work throughout their career to document how the careers develop and change over a period of time. We're also in all of our shows now, since about 2 years ago, all of our collection shows, we're showing 2D and 3D work together. We're trying to place contemporary craft within the context of painting and sculpture movements from the same period of time. So for example, we did a collections focus show. It was a solo show for John McQueen and a solo show for Carol Eckert, because we have about almost 20 examples of each of their work in the collection. And they were doing these as mini career surveys, and I gave Janet copies of the catalog that we did for that, so if you want to, you can ask her if you want to see it. And around the corner from that, we had a show of recent figurative works on paper that we had also, that were recent acquisitions. Well, out of 12 prints, there was one by David Hockney, one by Jesper Johns, 3 by Richard Hamilton, you know, etc. And what I like about that is we get a lot of people who know who Henry Morris and who know who Monet is, and they know they like this material, but they don't know much about it. And so they're looking at Eckert and McQueen and they're thinking, well, this is interesting work, and then they go around the corner and they see David Hockney, and it's like, oh, well, they must be of a similar ilk if they're showing here alongside them. You know, like your parents said when you were in high school, you're judged by the company you keep. You know, it works in this way. Next, please. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about our collection. When we opened RAM, we had about, I don't know, when I started, we had about 600 pieces in the collection. When we started the campaign to build the building, we had about 2,500 works in the collection. When we opened up, we had 4,000, now almost 8. So it's really growing very, very rapidly. In the ceramics area, and I'm not talking about 2D with you for the most part today, I'm going to talk about, you know, the area of your interest. We collect functional works, so we have a large teapot collection. That's Annette Corcoran on the left, and then we also collect sculptural clay. Michael Lucero on the right. I have titles and dates for everything, but I don't think I want to go into that. You can ask me, though, and I'm happy to share that I did my homework, but I think it'll slow us down too much. Next. We also you know, collect major figures. We have a Peter Volkas on the left, and we are one of the main stopping places for Toshiko Takiesu's work. What you see on the right is part of a 14-piece installation sculpture she created called the Star Series. They start at this height and go up to here. And we also have one of her tree forests and one of the dual hammock pieces, in addition to small, you know, tea bowls and smaller forms. So again, that's of an interest to us to show. I mean, we have a Volkos piece from the 50s. I like talking about how a career develops over a period of time. Can you see something early on in the career that you can learn more about the artist's work? In a way, you know, a lot of places collect the one or two quintessential objects that talk about the artist's peak careers. They see it. That's how you collect a painting collection at a major museum. We collect craft like a major museum would put together a print and drawing collection where you like want all the Picasso prints you can get your hands on. That's kind of how we're operating. Also, storage space out by us is a lot cheaper than it is in New York or Washington, D.C. We just rented off-site space for $3 a square foot per year, utilities included, and it's museum HVAC quality. Yeah, it's wonderful. Next, please. Ceramics is the largest portion of the craft collection, and we've had two teapot collectors give us work. And when I say we're getting collections, we have collectors living in 30 different states right now who have given us objects. One of my New York collectors said, I can give it to my local museum and never see it, or I can give it to you and come visit it. Because we deinstall our galleries completely 3 times a year and mix everything out. We do a combination of shows from the collection and then shows that we curate, like you do here, and bring in from the outside. So often what we'll do is we'll take a, you know, like we brought the Judith Lieber retrospective that the Corcoran organized, and we put that in the main gallery, and then we did a show called Bling from the permanent collection. It was, you know, like luster glazed ceramics and jewelry. We brought out our big John Kuhn 7 pendulum piece that we hung from the ceiling that nobody will let us take it down now. That just goes great. But these are two examples of the ranges. The teapot collection goes from studio pottery and masters like Karen Kearns on the left to more sculptural works like the Richard Notkin piece on the right. Next, please. We have what I have been told is the largest contemporary basket collection in the country. It's closing in on 500 pieces very soon, but we also collect wall works and sculptural works. Here's a good Pennsylvania artist, Rebecca Medell, on the left. She's from eastern Pennsylvania, and I know there's like a Mason-Dixon line that runs through Harrisburg, but because I have family there. But this is Star Map Crater on the left, and then a basket by the late Lillian Elliott on the right. That's about that size in real life to give you an idea. Some of these are small and some of them are sculptural. Next, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain the piece on the left a little bit?
Oh yeah, these are really quite wonderful. It's a knotted fiber that is then resist dye, and then it is shaped. Okay, and can you see the bars in here? And so there's like 5 of these hung like one drape after another from this bar. And what happens is the shaped spaces become very illusionary and very dimensional, so that when you look at it, you're not only seeing the image painted and dyed on the fiber, but also it is kind of there's a physical bumped shape. They're really quite marvelous things. She just gave us the largest piece she ever made. It was made for the Lucerne Biennial. I think it's only been shown twice because nobody's got the room for it, and it was she reconfigured it for our upstairs space that I showed you a slide of earlier. We're going to do a show next fall of recent acquisitions of large-scale tech fiber. So I mean, we're acquiring that kind of material that we can do a specialized show along those lines.
What's her name again?
Her name is Rebecca Medell. Yeah, Kate, you know her work.
She's been in the
Kate's
Fiber
got it.
Fiber Art International.
Yeah, I mean, just a beautiful body of work. Yeah, very ethereal. That was a good question. Okay, next, please. On the upper left, a wonderful artist from Chicago, Barbara Cooper. This is called Aria. It's made out of wood veneer. But it's kind of one of those pieces that crosses over between the fiber collection and the wood collection. And then this is a basket by Jane Schlage called former bonheur, and it's made out of, you know, used wine bottle corks, and everybody wants to volunteer to help her gather the material for those works. Yeah. And then next we have Linda Bills, Tulip Poplar, a basket pieces, and another Lillian Elliott, a very low piece. It's a little bit bigger than that in real life. We collect fibers in depth. Next, please. Examples and what I like about this, for example, is this is John McQueen's Warning Words, which is about this high. And it's a paragraph of text woven out of willow, and you can actually walk around it and read. And then a piece from about 5 or 6 years later, which is letters cut out of tulip poplar bark and assembled with plastic rivets. Have you had him here?
Yes.
Right, all right, so well, he's based in New York, so he's kind of in the neighborhood here. But again, a wonderful way to follow someone working in text, and in one way approaching it to make almost like a lace-like cage on the surface, and in another way making a much more solid form. Next, please. In glass, we collect both functional and sculptural works. Sonia Blomdahl's red, green, yellow vessel on the left, and then a great Richard Marcus piece from his archive series. He made, I think, 10 or 12 of these, and this is one of the few that's in public hands right now. Next, Joel Philip Myers on the left from the Contiguous Fragment series, and on the right, a Michael Glancy caged glass vessel with electroformed copper around the outside that's been gold plated. And again, lots of pieces that reference vessels. We do collect, I would say we probably have more historic glass than we have contemporary glass in the glass collection, because it's just something that the collectors have been giving us. You know, we don't have acquisition funds, so you know, you're kind of trying to fill holes with gifts and directing the collectors to give you what they may want to give you, and in some cases what they don't necessarily want to give you, but that you need. So you do this dance and you date each other for a while. Metals, please, next. We collect art jewelry, we collect functional hollowware, and we collect metal sculpture. And here's 2 examples from the jewelry collection: a brooch of 14-karat gold and pearl by Ken Lober on the left, and a brooch called the Mount Fuji, which is exactly what it depicts, by Harold O'Connor on the right. Next. And then Richard Mafong's Trompe l'oeil Chinese Mandarin vest, which is a life-size vest made out of, I believe it's with the requisite technique in sterling silver, and it's inside a brass box that hangs on the wall with brass tissue with his last name embossed, you know, over all of it as if it was from like Kaufman's or Marshall Fields or something. And then a sculptural work by Bruce Metcalf on the right from 1992.
What's the scale of the Metcalf piece?
The Metcalf is about yay high. It's about the size of this part is about the size of a real end table, and it relates to that. And then these are pretty big amoebic figures for him. This is from he did a series of large pieces back in the early 90s, and we own 2 of those.
Are those figures wood as well?
No, they're, I believe they may be polymer. I know this lists polymer as some of the material, but he also used modeling clay with some of those. The next, wood. We collect turned work and furniture. Mark Lindquist on the left and Wendell Castle on the right. We have about 6 or 7 examples of Castle's work already in the collection. And this is one of the earlier ones. This is a music rack out of walnut from 1972. This is kind of fun. It was designed to be one of an edition 25, and this is the only one that was ever made, so it's kind of a de facto one-off. Next, and then a sculptural turned and carved piece by Robin Horn from about 1995, and then a bowl by the Italian Gianfranco Angelino. Next, other examples of artists in depth. I mean, this is kind of like, this is a nice, you know, showy chihuly, but you know, when you put this up on the board, nobody recognizes that that's his very early work from about 1965, and it is a blown glass wine carafe with a stopper down on this end that actually comes off. We have 2 of these. We have a blue one and then a black one that snakes even more. So I'm really big on getting some of the things that surprise people when they look at the work. And then next, you know, the fun thing for someone like Carol Eckert is we've got a basket for him. I mean, this is the basket, the rest is the lid, and then this whole series of staffs that she's been doing. I don't know if you've seen those, but we have 3 of those, and she's painting a wooden staff and then creating the top for it. But it's fun to have the works dialogue with each other. It was great. She came to see the show, and she wrote me later, and she said, I'm doing a new body of work based on having seen all of these old pieces from different periods of my career. So for me, it's about documenting the artist's work seriously and treating artists working in craft media like treating a painter or a sculptor. It's about bragging, frankly, that we've got so much material that we can do this out of the archive, you know, out of the vault, and not have to borrow it from anywhere. And thirdly, it's about what it does for the artist to see their work together. We only show in these collection focus shows, we only show work we own or work that has been seriously promised by collectors that we work with. Next. The other thing I like to do is I like to collect works on paper by craftsmen, because there's 2 bridges in the collection between the works on paper collection and the craft collection. One is works on paper by crafts artists. This is a Chihuly Venetian drawing, which is about this high on the left, and then a Rudy Audio drawing. Rudy made these wonderful Matisse, just oomphy drawings, and this is a watercolor. It's about this high. To give you an idea of the scale, so it's wider than that in real life. The other area is we have a handmade book collection, and the handmade books use craft techniques, but they also are limited edition and they're letterpress, so they relate to the graphics collection. So we do a lot of backing and forthing through those 2 checkpoints. Next. Okay, that's your RAM Collection 101. Okay. I want to speak about a focus that we're kind of getting into through a gift that we've received. We've received almost 200 pieces created in the polymer medium from a consortium of 5 private collectors, and then also a group of artists who've been working in the material. And the show's going to open up this coming October with an exhibit of about 200 things, of which half are from our collection and the other half we're borrowing from artists and collectors. And we're going to sort of do a historic intro to polymer as a material, and then we're featuring 8 different studios from across the country, primarily jewelry, but there's also a husband and wife team who make furniture, and someone who's making installation pieces and vessels now. And we're doing like mini career surveys for them within the main show. And we're looking here at a neck piece by Pierre Bocos and a close-up of a section of it. And as part of this gift that came to us, we also collaborated with the donors to place polymer works in a number of other major museum collections, primarily along the East Coast. So the MFA Boston took work for their jewelry collection. In fact, there's 1 or 2 polymer pieces in the show that they just opened up at the MFA from the collection. The Philadelphia Museum of Art took work, MAD in New York took work, and Newark took work, and the Menge Museum in San Diego took work, and I believe the pieces averaged anywhere from 6 to 30 some works per museum. And what we're talking about is the fact that this material is starting to be used by some artists who were trained in art school as a means to make work. It was invented in Germany in the 1930s to be used for doll making, okay? And then it became, it's kind of a plastic-based material, and it can be cured by being fired in a conventional, kitchen oven. And I think what happened to it is it began to be used by hobbyists and children in Europe, and then it was brought over here to the United States in the 70s, where again, Eberhard Faber got involved with it and started calling it Fimo and started making it in colors. and you could see people started working with it in their kitchens. It was very, very democratic. What was great about it was you didn't need a jeweler's bench, you didn't need a kiln, you didn't need a lot of material to work with. You could do this with kitchen tools. Like one of the great things they love to work with is a pasta machine to roll it flat into sheets. And what's also fun about it is, you know, you can paint it, you can put metallic powders in it, you can do a lot with it. Now this is the neck piece by Pure Volko. She's Peter Volkas's daughter and was one of the leading people in the field. Early in the century, she sort of stepped away from making art, and she's now working full-time as a tango dancer. And, but Julie, Artisans Gallery on Madison Avenue in New York, Curator, worked for a number of years. Next, please. So what I want to do is I want to talk about, you know, some of the similarities I see as these pieces enter our collection with the broader art jewelry field and how it all kind of clicks back and forth, at least in my head. What they do that I think is kind of fascinating with this is you can make canes out of polymer like you make a cane for making glass paperweights, and you cut the slices. And so basically she's making, you know, the faces in canes and all these other, you know, shapes that way, and it allows you to work with them. A lot of the hobbyists in this field in the 90s in particular were scientific types, engineers, scientists, etc., and they began to teach and instruct and communicate with each other over the fledgling internet. And so they're really, I mean, there's a really huge archive website now on the internet, and there's a lot of stuff going on back and forth. We're publishing a 128-page hardcover book in conjunction with this show, with an interview with one of the key players, and my curator, Luna Vigna, and I having a conversation about polymer, and one of her areas of specialization is our jewelry, and we're talking about what this is going to do for us in the field. That's going to be very interesting. So again, kind of like large-scale, full-blown, oh, make your neck piece look like a lathe. You know, this is a Bob Ebbendorf necklace from 1991 called Off the Street from the Beach, and that's exactly what it is. He dug it all up from there. It was all scavenged from walks along the beach and walks along the street. Next. One of the things I also like about this as a museum director and somebody who's very audience-driven is we will bring hobbyists in who make this at home, and you don't make oil paintings at home on the kitchen table for the most part, and to see what's going on, and they'll be exposed to everything else that's in the museum at that time. So there's some wonderful passing back and forth that are going on. This is a neck piece by a woman named Rachel Karen. That's a polymer and silk, and the polymer patterning is based on textures and patterns from paintings by Bonnard, and then a neck piece in the collection by Tina Fumholder with her safety pins and the beads strung on safety pins crocheted together with cotton thread. Again, I'm really interested in kind of large-scale ceremonial work that occupies larger portions of the body. Next, a piece by Dan Cormier from the year 2000 with a photographic image of a monkey's face inside the helmet. These are two artists working with photographic images, and then J. Fred Wool's There's No Place Like Home with a copper kind of photo etching image of a house inside this neck piece. Next. Elaborate color and patterned surfaces. Elise Winters on the left, she's based in New Jersey. Again, what polymer also does, I think, is it kind of allows you to do some of what the European and American artists are doing in trying to expand the scale of the jewelry, because it is lightweight, so you can do kind of an outlandish form, but also create very painterly surface effects. And then here's our necklace by Earl Pardon that, you know, just is a million wonderful technical things going on between enamel and ebony and mother of pearl and faceted and cabochon stones. It's really kind of a tour de force, but has that same kind of feeling. Folded forms next, please. The collaborative team of Ford and Forlano, one lives in up this way, the other lives in the southwest, and they ship their work back and forth and work on it collaboratively that way. But both of their training was in painting and printmaking. And this is an early work from their career. It's a folded anodized aluminum piece by Arlene Fish on the right. Again, similar interest in texture and in breaking up the surface. Next, repeated visual rhythm, a neck piece by Cynthia Toops on the left, based on anemones and sea urchins, and on the right, another Arlene Fish, the pleated titanium fan. Just creating a lot of interest in the structure of the work through repetition. Next, voluptuous growth-like forms. A Pyrvolcos on the left, the star fruit beads necklace. It does look like star fruit. And then a brooch on the right by the British artist Dawn Goulias. What we also are good at, I think, at my museum is looking at the collection and trying to put the objects in a variety of contexts, because the piece doesn't change between your visits. You do, and you see different things in it when you come back later. And so maybe this might be in a show about fruit and vegetables. It might be in a show about citrus color. We would come up with different topics that we organize the works around. And I say to people, you won't see the same piece 3 times, every time you come over 5 years, but you might see it in 3 different shows over a 6-year time period. But the shows are going to be under different topic headings, and you'll see something different in the works every time you come. Context is, I think, really important to us. But I also like crossing back and forth between different aspects of the collection, the sacred and the profane, the high value, metal objects with stones, and the more unusual, materials. Next, colorful organic forms, polymer bangle bracelet, the bamboo bio bangle by Melanie West on the left, and a Peter Chang brooch on the right. Again, really a lot of interest in pattern and painterly surface effects in both artists' work. Elaborate pattern in small scale, that's next. A swirl necklace by Pyrvolcos on the left, and a brooch by Colette Denton on the right, which is enamel. So if you're seeing what I'm doing here, just imagine pulling out a color etching, maybe with a bird or a similar abstract pattern, and hanging it behind that, next to it, to get an idea of how we integrate the 2-dimensional work in with the 3-dimensional work. Next, comparing polymer with other media in the craft collection. So we have miniature scale in construction. This is one of our 4 Diane Hitter wall pieces. You may know her work. She died tragically. She died too young. But these are knotted linen, and they're like that big. Knotted dyed linen. She only worked in linen and only worked in square knots, but treated these things like painting compositions. I mean, they're just lively and wonderful. And then it's Cynthia Toops' wall piece that's about that big. And she specializes in micro mosaics. So all these little things that look like shingles are made up of little tiny baby fingernail clipping sized pieces of polymer that she sets in place. And that, of course, relates to the micro mosaic tradition that was kind of in vogue, particularly in Europe in the 19th century. So that's her children, and it's a piece titled Story Time. All of her work is personal and narrative. The still life fruit and vegetables is next. Asparagus cuff bracelet by Lily Hunani on the left, and a glass piece on the right by Jimmy Ruffner called Fruit and Flowers from 1995. Again, they're both talking about the use of vegetable matter in still life compositions, or at least that's how we're looking at it in this case. Next is Collage Elements, Gwen Gibson's piece on the left, out of polymer, Expressions of Time, and on the right, Lillian Elliott. You can paint on polymer, you can offset print on it, you can do a lot of different things, and there's layers that she's collaged in here. And Elliott was big on collaging elements in her baskets. She would weave sections and then collage on top of it things like a silk fabric that she found appealing, paint on top of it, and then also things like zippers. Next. Outlandish forms and containers. A small polymer container, lidded container by an artist named Ronnie Kirsch on the left, and then Michael Davis's painted reed basket, which is bigger than that in real life, titled The Devil Made Me Do It. Elaborate forms for reinventing functional vessels is next. Jeff Dever's polymer bottle, polymer love bottle on the left, and then a covered container on a stand by Ralph Becerra on the right. Similar interest in curved forms, similar interest in pattern, but very, very different delivery on the surface. I'm almost done. Furniture with unexpectedly embellished surfaces. The collaborative team of Bonnie Bishop and J.M. Siren on the left, the Meander credenza. This is two different kinds of wood with a polymer mosaic surface, kind of relating to the history of parquetry and marquetry and furniture. And then our earliest, Wendell Castle, that's a desk from 1967 that was in Objects USA. That's bent plywood with a cherry and mahogany laminate over the plywood, and then the writing surface, if you ever had the nerve to do it, is silver leaf with a lacquer. Now, again, why you would collect historically is, most of his work after this was very much just the natural wood being used, and then all of a sudden he started patenting metal and incorporating that with the furniture, and his new furniture is like lacquered, and it also relates to little experimentations he was doing with cast fiberglass furniture a few years after this, but he kind of left that. It wasn't very popular. He did natural wood for about 20 years, and then it looked as though this stuff is coming with color out of nowhere, but it wasn't. It was coming from earlier in his career when he was experimenting with it. High relief sculpture next. Kathleen Dustin Oda Lesk on the left. This is a wall piece. It's about that high, and she comes off the sofa, off the divan, and there's a necklace made up of beads. The beads are like big pillows that match the scene here that you can wear, and then she hangs on the sofa when it goes on the wall. And then one of our Jack girls, it's a little bigger than this in real life, and they're both high relief pieces. This is called Raphael Worked Close to Home, and this is a woman from one of his paintings, but she comes very far in high relief off the surface of the sculpture. Next. And then figurative sculpture, two evening bags by Dustin on the left. They're Minodiers, the strap comes out of the back. And then a Beatrice Wood teapot on the right called Man and Mermaid. I pretty much covered it all. I mean, the collection number is close to 8,000 objects today. We continue to rotate work. Hopefully you'll read about the polymer show. It's been in ornament once already. There will be more on it in the coming issue. American Craft is talking to us now. You're welcome to check us out on our website, but I'd also be happy to welcome you the next time you're on the Midwest if you want to come for a visit to Racine. It is. It's a great field trip. Pardon?
Are you on the train line?
Well, we're on. That's a very well. We're a state that's having a lot of fun right now politically. And one of the things that happened is our governor decided to give back like $70 million. I was 80, but $1 million for a high-speed train between Madison and Milwaukee. Well, what they're trying to do is we're trying to get the inexpensive commuter rail line, for which we have track already. We're trying to get the commuter line connected from the state line at Kenosha, Wisconsin, where it terminates the North Shore line from Chicago. We want to get it the service connected up to Milwaukee through Racine. We have the stations, we have the train line. We're hoping we can make it happen. train service we have is Amtrak. It's expensive, it stops earlier in the evening, and the station for Amtrak in Racine is about a 20-minute ride from the museum, and we have to come get you because we have a cab. We don't have a cab company, we have one cab, and that's not always running. So people particularly from eastern cities, we're 70 miles north of Chicago. What most people do is they rent a car, it's just easier. But I would say talk to us before you come because we're happy to help you kind of work with this because we know this is not easy. Yeah, it's not something I'm real happy about. The train station in Racine for the commuter rail is 1 mile from Ram, and it's 1 mile from the other campus right in the middle of the two. It's like wonderful, and the community's bus service depot is next to that, so you can just get on a bus and go around town. It's really great. It works. Other questions? Yes.
So the two facilities, the size of the craft center facility, which you call RAM,
all right, let's see, I should tell you that. We have about 65,000 square feet between the two facilities.
Wow.
Worcester is about 18,000 square feet on 13 acres of land, and RAM is close to 50. It's in the high 40s. And it has no property around it other than a 7-car parking lot on one end of the block. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. The Worcester campus is owned by the city. We have a multi-year contract with the city to run that building as an art museum on their behalf, and we receive some money from them to help defray our expenses. They spend about $90,000 in tax money every year towards the allocation to us, and that leverages about $25,000 from the Worcester Trust, $130,000 from a sewer agreement, don't ask, and we spend about another $150,000 an hour out of our nonprofit money to run that campus. And what we do there is that is the home to our visual education programs. We've got one of the largest non-degree studio class programs in the state. We do classes for children and adults out there. We do a lot of hands-on programs for kids at that campus as well, and we do shows for artists with local and regional reputations at that campus. We only have like 2,500 square feet in 5 galleries. It's very small, very like, but rooms of a house, taken with the walls taken out in between. And then at RAM is basically where we do. The nonprofit operates that and owns that, so we have ownership of that financial asset. So, we raise the money, put the money into it, and if we need to sell the building, we've got the property. So it's a good check and balance system. And what we do there is we do shows for artists with national and international reputations, and we do a lot of our hands-on projects. We do a lot of, family development programs there. We have free First Fridays, and we'll get like 1,000 people in on a Friday night in the summer between 5 and 9 o'clock at night. And believe me, it's scary. Getting 200 people in an hour. 200 people who don't have museum manners. It's not like you've got all your members coming to the Picasso show. We're doing this as a broad-based, introduction thing, and we have to, remind people about not touching and so forth, and they're thrilled about it. I mean, what this has done is we do have really very cool, clever, bright people in our community. I'm not trying to downplay that in any way. What it's done, though, is the museum has given people in the community a sense of pride about who they are, and you see it when they come in. It's really been a wonderful thing for me at this stage in my career to be involved in making that possible for people. And it's also making us an attraction. We're getting a lot of anecdotal feedback from the Chicago audience that they've been going to Milwaukee. They go to Milwaukee all the time, like New Yorkers go to Philly, but they've never gotten off the expressway, and it's like an undiscovered country for them. Now you put that together with, a 1,000 slip harbor marina, a 12 square block historic residential area with 3 blocks of brick streets, 4 or 5 Frank Lloyd Wright buildings dating from 1908 to the 1950s, and like the only natural sandy beach on the whole side of the state. off Lake Michigan. It really makes a nice, day trip or an overnight, weekend thing. And we're really excited to be part of that whole thing. And it was interesting. I never had to tell any potential corporate contributor or business owner what this was going to do for their business. It was going to help them become an employer of choice. And when that hit me was, for a community like us, it's really hard to land female OB-GYNs, okay, because they're in such demand. And I met a woman at a cocktail party, and she looked at me and she said, what are you doing? She said, I'm a gynecologist, and I just came here to town. And she asked me what, and she just started to laugh when I told her what I did. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, when they interviewed me for my job at the medical complex, the first place they took me was the medical complex. The second place they brought me to was Rand. And she said, when I walked in the door, I knew I could live here. Wow. And so she and her software teaching Northwestern University staff member husband sold their house in Evanston in Illinois and moved to Racine. Wow. So, that's what it's all about. I think what you want to look for is ways in which you can really partner with your community to generate really easily seen, demonstrable, factual benefits for them, and initiatives that benefit both of you, where you're just constantly giving it back and forth to each other and making it better and better. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.